Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Wednesday, September the 23rd, 2015. I have the great honor and pleasure of welcoming back Mr. Andrew Hoffman from Miles Franklin. And how you doing today, Andy?
Doing great with all the time issues we've had and Skype going down. I'm thrilled to finally be here.
Yeah. We have had some technical difficulties, not of our making, but we're not even sure where they came from. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad we're getting to do this. And I've got to give Sean a big shout out over at SGT Report, because if it wasn't for him, I would have never met you or gotten to know about your work, and I'm very grateful for that. And Sean does just outstanding work, and I'm grateful to be associated with his team. So
Likewise.
and I was listening over the weekend, Andy, to the doc over at Silver Doctors, and he and Dave were explaining that the retail market has fallen off a cliff to the tune of a 45% decline beginning mid 2011 through today. How can our economy recover if there is no retail market when our economy is made up of 70% retail demand?
I thought for a second you were talking about retail silver demand because you're
No.
talking to the doc. No. Right now, our business here at Miles Franklin, I'm sure with him as well, is almost at the record level we had, which was both in 2011 at the peak of gold and silver prices and in 2008 at the bottom. But as for the economy as a whole, and remember, any numbers you see are overstated. But yeah, retail is dead because the consumer is dead. In fact, I remember writing an article, probably 6 months ago, about how the local Best Buy. And I was like, wow, I remember a few years ago we used to come in here, we couldn't even get a sales associate to help us. And I came in here twice in one weekend, and there were like no people, and all these associates begging to talk to me. And sure enough, they just closed. I mean, that's the story of America. Part of it is people have gone online, but it's more than that. It's far more than that. People just don't have money. That's why the overall numbers. 2013, I think, was the worst holiday season since 2009. 2014 was much worse, if you remember. And I predict that this year will make last year look like the boon times.
Oh my goodness! Well, something to look forward to. And you had alluded to, you thought I was going down the silver and gold path, so let's jump on that. And what are you guys experiencing over there at Miles Franklin? Are you guys blowing up like everybody else and everything running off the shelf?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's been more proactive. I wrote an article back in early August, said silver supply at 1.5 or 2.0 out of 10, which was a direct quote from our president and co-founder, saying that's how little supply was out there. And that was 6 weeks ago. And then we did a podcast, special gold and silver physical market update 2 weeks later, where we said it's getting even worse. And I spoke to him again last night. Not that I need to speak to him because I could see what's going on around the industry. We're out of product. American Silver Eagles, 6 to 8 week delay. The numbers, they're being allocated right now. Even the Mint admits they're allocating because they don't have enough supply to meet the demand. Royal Canadian Mint, essentially, they're not taking orders right now. We're pretty much out of just about everything, aside from 100-ounce bars, which are the last thing to go. Junk silver, impossible to get, highest premiums ever. And, and it's, our gold business has increased a bit, but it's still, it's the quote, poor man's gold, and B, people smell blood in the water because they know that supply is running out. It's just like 2008. We're going to completely run out of supply, especially when we have a crisis where the Dow goes down for, 3 or 4 days in a row without the PPT coming around, and everyone gets nervous. Everyone's going to fly in and take whatever's left. And then they'll come and take the gold like they did in 2008. And then there'll be no supply left, and it'll be too late. And there won't be any central banks around that are able to say, whoa, we're just going to do QE4 and TARP. Everything will be fine. Don't worry. No, this time around, all that credibility is gone. All their balance sheet ammunition is gone. There's going to be a race to protect one's wealth, and no greater race to the remaining scant, record low inventory, record high demand for precious metals.
And speaking of Fed credibility, or central bank in general credibility, why isn't it that doesn't the world now see the Federal Reserve as nothing but a Ponzi scheme? They weren't even able to raise a pathetic 0.25% interest rates, because if they know if they do that, they're going to blow up the derivatives market. Because I was speaking with Dr. Paul Craig Roberts a couple of days ago, and he was saying that he reminded me that the interest rate swaps, which is the largest part of the derivatives market, those move by very, very small percentage points, or by very small basis points. And if you've got a 0.25 basis points move, that's going to blow up the derivatives market. So they
That's
can't
because
even
it's
do that.
that's called leverage, and no one's more leveraged than the Fed's balance sheet itself. The Fed itself is like a 50 to 100 to 1 leverage, which is more than Lehman was. I mean, why anyone would even consider an interest rate increase when you have record low commodities, currencies crashing around the world, economic data at its worst point ever, debt as high as it's been everywhere across the board, and of course, the Fed has the most highly leveraged, long duration, toxic bond portfolio of $4.5 trillion in history. Why would they raise rates and destroy themselves? And then you throw in the derivatives market and the fact that we have record high financial asset valuations that are based on zero interest rates. Of course, they weren't going to do that, and it's just comical. But it's not just the Fed that's a Ponzi scheme; it's the whole global currency regime, fiat currency regime. The Fed just happens to be, the head of it because we have the quote reserve currency. But everything is going down. So when you say when is the world going to see? Every currency in the world right now is down 50 to 100%. In the past 4 years, since the Fed went crazy with this QE3 and QE4, and Abenomics came in, and the ECB, et cetera. I mean, we're talking about today, all-time low in 4 of the 5 BRICS, the only one not being China because they're still pegged and they won't be for long. There's a reason why I said China's devaluation would be the cataclysmic big financial big bang to end all big bangs, because they started the final stage of the final currency war. Every central bank is going to destroy their currency at a more rapid pace now. And of course, right after that, I said the only financial event that could be more cataclysmic than a significant yuan devaluation is the Fed raising rates, which of course they didn't do, and they're not going to do in December, and they're never going to do. And to me, the next move that is going to be them going negative, because they have to compete with the negative interest rates that the European bank has right now. And, for all those people that think they're working together, the head of the ECB just said yesterday or last week that no matter what the Fed does, Europe and the Fed have different monetary goals. The point is that, of course, they're at war with each other. They all want to win this currency war, which will only destroy the 99% faster.
Let me ask you this, Andy. How can the ECB, the Federal Reserve, People's Bank of China, the Bank of Japan, how can they work together, or do they work together? And if not, then why wouldn't they go after the other? Why wouldn't one go after the other? I mean, it doesn't make sense. If I'm looking out the window and I see a crime being committed that has direct impact on what I'm doing, I'm going to address it. And why don't these central banks around the world do that with one another?
That's what they're doing right now. I mean, up until 2008, when the economy of the world was, artificially growing, people didn't care. The Japanese wanted a lower yen, and we wanted a lower dollar, and Europeans wanted a lower euro. But they didn't have to be so aggressive about it because there was no real political urgency, because there was no giant recession going on and people demanding more jobs. So they just kind of did it passively. No one cared, and they kind of acted, as friends. And then, of course, during 2008, it was deer in headlights. So they all clearly got together every day and said, what can we do? We all have to work together to save things. We'll create, the Fed created, remember those swap agreements with the European banks so they can help them out. And the Fed gave 16 trillion of secret loans out to everybody. And they clearly were meeting all the time. But now as that crisis passed, but the real crisis has started of a slow, gradual collapse of the economy. The different nations and central banks have all gone their own way and said, we need to protect ourselves. It's a dog-eat-dog world. And that's why the currency war has gone on. You're seeing less and less cooperation, more and more attacks on each other, calling the Chinese, for instance, currency manipulators, and them fighting back by selling treasuries, for instance.
Exactly.
And, there's no more collusion. I guarantee you, aside from some casual notes, hey, we're going to raise rates, we're going to lower rates. They're not talking to each other at all right now. It's every man for himself, and every man's going to drown.
And speaking of treasuries and China selling treasuries, I mean, what is your analysis pointing to as far as China and other creditor nations uh, selling more? Are they? Do you think that there's going to be more of that coming down the pike? Are they going to? Is
Of course.
China or other people going to outlaw
No, no one,
the
no one's
dollar?
buying, no one's buying treasuries anymore. They were all buying it when the economy was better, so that they can, they can recycle the money that they made in export trade back into the dollar and keep it strong, so they can keep it going. But now everything's falling apart, and countries just need money to protect their currencies. I mean, the Chinese are devaluing their currency, and at the same time, they're selling treasuries to protect it from devaluing too fast because they don't want it to go down too fast. That's how insane it is. That's why I wrote an article recently calling China the most dangerous, destructive force on the earth, because they started this whole thing with the Fed's help, of course, and they're going to end it. Again, there is no cooperation going on with anyone. We're talking about Keystone cops everywhere, just waking up every day. There's no collusion. They're waking up every day saying, "How can we kick the can one more day?" And that one more day is heading toward the end of time right now.
Want to circle back to silver because of what happened recently, what we found out recently about India and importing 1,400 tons in the month of August. And with mines beginning to close around the world, Glencore just closed a massive copper mine that just happened to produce a significant amount of silver as well. And I learned from an interview that Daniel Amaduri conducted with Keith Neumeyer that another large copper mine with significant silver production is going to close very soon. How can the market continue with these exchange rates for silver and gold when mines are closing, demand is exploding, and as I said, India just drained 1,400 tons of silver in 1 month, but the U.S. Mint can't meet production. I mean,
Yes, because they're taking it from the COMEX and anywhere that there's any left. That's why the inventories are collapsing. And isn't it a coincidence that India's import of silver is about to hit a record high as the Indian rupee hits an all-time low? Remember 3 years ago or 2 years ago when they imposed those tariffs
yep.
because they thought that it would help the rupee and increase the budget balance? Well, guess what? It didn't help the budget balance, and the rupee is back to an all-time low, en route to far lower levels. And there's a huge black market, by the way, because of those tariffs. So whatever numbers you see on Indian imports are far understated compared to what they were in the past. And as for Glencore, I mean, God, yesterday my article was called Occam's Razor and the Upcoming Historical Silver Shortage. And today's was the future of gold and silver mining in simple pictures, where I showed the mining, the mining company stock charts, which are all going to nothing. These companies are dead, dead, dead. Unless the cartel breaks, like I'm talking about immediately, the year-end write-offs are going to destroy whatever's left of the majors. Whatever's left are going to merge and be diluted, and they're going to cut whatever mining capex is still there, which hasn't produced anything in years, and they're going to consolidate and lay off anyone that's still there, et cetera. And again, for silver, Glencore is what I highlighted today. Glencore is just this bastardized Wall Street over-leveraged piece of garbage that came around right at the top of the market in 2012 to basically borrow money. They've got $50 billion of debt and naked short and trade futures contracts of base metals. And now they're clearly, like any other hedge fund, stuck massively long, and they're about to go bankrupt, and they're going to have to sell all of these contracts of copper and zinc and lead, which are already heading toward their 2008 lows. We're going to have mine closures everywhere. There's been all this oversupply of mines for industrial metals that no one wants. At the same time, it's been the exact opposite for gold and silver because the prices have been suppressed, and now there's been no discoveries and there's no production. I mean, what I wrote, the Occam's Razor article yesterday was because our friend Steve St. Angelo showed that for the first half of the year, the top producers in the world are running at a 7 or 8% year-over-year decline in silver production. And that's before any of these mine closures. We had our Miles Franklin All-Star Silver Webinar panel a year ago, and I said, a 25 to 50% production decline in silver in the next 5 years or so is very realistic. And after what I'm seeing now, I've never been more convinced that is not just realistic, it's likely. I mean, we are going to see mine closures in 2016 that are going to blow people's mind. All you have to do is look at Caterpillar is the biggest mine equipment company in the world. They've had 33 straight months of declining revenues. I mean, no one is mining. the base metals and all those other things, it's because the economy is collapsing, and for gold and silver, it's because the prices have been pushed below the cost of production, while there's no production left.
Now, as far as India is concerned, I mean they're now consuming approximately 25% more of the world's silver mining production than they were just a few years ago. Where does this leave the rest of us, and is this even sustainable with everything that you just demonstrated as far as the mining collapse? I mean, if India continues, they're right now, even you take out the 1,400 tons, they're still running at 25% higher than they were in like 2008 or 2009, I believe. And there's only so much to go around.
That's right.
So,
And that's why we're running it. That's why I've been shouting to people for months to get your silver while you can. Because now, if you call up Miles Franklin and say, "I want Silver Eagles," we're going to say it's going to take you 2 months, and you're going to pay the highest premium you've paid since 2009. And if you wait another month, or heck, it could be another day, if the PPTs start to really lose control of stock markets, we may say, like in 2008, sorry, not taking orders. In fact, like I said, you can't say, if you said, "I want to buy $100,000 of Canadian silver maples right now," we'd say, "Sorry, can't take your order. Royal Canadian Mint is too backlogged to even take orders." And soon it'll be the same for the U.S. Mint, which is already on allocation because of the 2-month wait. And soon it'll be like that for everything. And I mean, people, do you not remember what happened in 2008? The entire world sold out of gold and silver, particularly silver. I mean, we couldn't get it anywhere. The premiums on silver went to 100%, and on gold they went to 30%. Only this time around, there's going to be nothing to reverse it. There's not going to be some calming of the markets. This time, everyone's going to realize the game is over, and we need to protect ourselves. And that's why, for instance, junk silver is trading at twice I call it the ultimate fear asset, is trading at twice the premium it was trading at 2008, when everyone thought the world was going to end, because everyone knows something terrible is about to happen.
and with the mining production shut down or headed in that direction, there's not going to be any resupply, right?
That's right. It's been destroyed in silver. It's by the dual nature of the suppression of the mining industry and mining shares for so long, and also the oversupply of the copper, lead, and zinc markets, which is going to remain for indefinitely. It could remain for a decade or more. And in gold, it's just the former, but it's the same thing. There's been no discoveries. There's no capital. To think that back, I said Barrick, which is going to go bankrupt, is back at the price it was in 1989 today. It's at an all-time low. 1989, when gold was, I don't know, $200 an ounce, and silver was probably $4. But back then, it was profitable to mine them because, the low-hanging fruit hadn't been found yet, and we hadn't had this massive inflation that we've had since. But right now, $1,100 gold. I mean, wait till you see, everybody. And I've said it all year. Wait till you see the write-offs that are coming at year end, and maybe even the end of the third quarter. I think some of the accountants are going to start telling the gold and silver companies, you can't wait till your year end review. You're so far below, there's no way. But at year end, everyone has to do it, and they're going to do just like 2 years ago. They're going to write off everything that's not nailed down, except this time they have horrible balance sheets, so they can't even support those write-downs, and you're going to see everything from the South Africans to the high costs, to the highly leveraged, all go under, and the rest are going to merge or be heavily diluted into oblivion, and they're all going to cut their capex and cut their production and cut their reserves to the point where there's not a chance that production ever returns. And again, the thing that's even more ominous for supply, which I've been saying all along, and no one wants to look one step ahead, is when the cartel is broken, and of course it will be, and gold and silver become a monetary focus again for the world, the governments of the world will again think of them as strategic assets, and they will nationalize every mine there is, every gold mine, every silver mine. And every time governments get their hands on things, just look what happened with PDVSA in Venezuela and their oil industry, they destroy them and production never comes back. So as far as I'm concerned, we're not just at peak production of gold and silver for the near term. I don't think we'll ever see the levels that we've seen again. And at the same time, demand is going to keep going up with no inventories around.
These criminals are backed into a corner. And we know that. You know that. Everybody listening to this knows it. And I'm referring to the Federal Reserve and the governments around the world. They're all criminals. You know it. anyway, you just brought up an interesting point as far as nationalizing the mines. What do you think is going to be their response when there isn't any more gold and silver supply? I mean, how do you think that they're going to respond to that? I don't really think that they're going to allow you and I to walk around with gold and silver in our pocket, conducting business.
Well, look,
I don't.
first of all, like look at India. There's a black market, right? Second of all, I wrote an article maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It's called "Priceless Precious Metals or Worthless Dollars," and basically, it's my answer to every "what if" question out there. Because everyone, I won't buy gold; they're going to confiscate it. And
I don't think
aside
they'll
from the fact that
confiscate it.
they didn't confiscate anything back in 1933.
Right.
They decreed it. They didn't actually do it. But aside from that, you worry about these problems when they happen. The government's not going to come out today and be like, well, the stock market's down a little. Let's confiscate gold. That's the last thing they want to do. It's the last thing they're even thinking about. They will do it when everything falls apart. And when everything falls apart, what you want to know is that you protect yourself beforehand. And if they say, well, we're not going to allow you to have gold, it's because the dollar has collapsed. And you say to yourself, well, I'm damn happy that I have that problem to worry about. And again, we don't know that that's going to happen. But the
Right.
point is, all you could do is make the best possible choice. And the best possible choice right now is to think of all aspects of your life, be they financial, personal, social, family, food, you name it. Make choices now that you think will be the best choices in a difficult world. And then when you get to those bridges, you cross them. Because believe me, I'd rather cross a bridge with a priceless bar of gold than a worthless dollar.
I would be right there with you, my friend. I mean, I wasn't trying to be a naysayer or anything like that. I mean, I'm just like I said, you brought up an interesting point. I
No,
mean,
that's the best possible question because there's always people that are worried about everything, and no one more than me. I mean, no one who knows me, and I'm a public figure in this world, knows that I'm the most paranoid person in the world about everything I do. But you have to, especially financially, but you have to make decisions.
yes,
And and again, I have this, I wrote this other article called Protection Continuum a few years ago, which means how you protect yourself is different for everyone else. You have different factors that are affecting you, your job, your family, your finances, your personal preferences, everything. And, the way I put it financially is that a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10 is move into Manhattan and put all your cash in Citibank. And a 10 is to move to a desert island, bury gold in the sand, and forage for food. I mean, only you can know what makes you feel comfortable. But if you do nothing, that's probably the worst thing in the world. Look what happened in 2008. Look what happened in 2000. And look what's happening now to most of the world and soon to be you if it hasn't happened yet.
couldn't agree more. And making no choice is the worst decision anybody could make. I mean, do something for God's sakes.
Yep,
you
I
know,
agree.
I mean, just look around, open your eyes, and open your ears. And Andy, I certainly appreciate all your time today. And we've been speaking with Andrew Hoffman, who is the media director over at Miles Franklin. And Andy, tell them how they can get in touch with you.
Sure, actually, marketing director now, and
Marketing director. I'm sorry.
we've been around milesfranklin.com. We've been around for 26 years, A plus Better Business Bureau rating, not a single registered complaint in 26 years. You can call us at 800-822-8080 or email me at ahoffman@milesfranklin.com.
Sounds good. And I certainly appreciate all your time. And Andy, we'll have to do this a lot sooner.
Looking forward to it.
All right, buddy. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Bye bye. Right. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate